Hello, footies. Welcome back to the second part in our special show. Myself, Dan Wimbush, and Aaron Glew, the Angel of the North, where we're talking around the kind of mental health issues, themes around addiction, and deeper sort of behavioural insight into our relationships with EAFC 24 football games and just sort of gaming in general. Very much recommend, if you haven't checked out part one, please go and check that out first, because that will deeply kind of impact and gives a lot of reference as to what we'll be talking about going forward. And again, as I mentioned at the top of that first show, we'll be dealing with themes around things like addictions as well. So if that does trigger you in any way, please just be advised that we will be talking a little bit about that. But Aaron, let's get going on part two. In part one, we kind of looked at, why, sort of talking about dopamine and things like that, why the game can and gaming can lead you into bad habits. Let's talk about the positive. Let's talk about the lessons that you learned from stepping away and doing all this research, because you are back in FC24. You are active within the community again, despite or in spite of learning what you've learned. So obviously there have been some lessons learned along the way. Just kind of talk us through your process of how and why you decided to come back.
Why coming back is because I love football games. And there's not a huge variety out there. And I think I didn't sign up for pre-release. I actually only got through it through my stepson. He had it. So I was like, I'll have a few games and this, that, and the other. And that kind of dipped my toe back into it. And I thought, I actually haven't lost any of my technical ability. So that was kind of reassuring. I think when you take a hiatus, you think, oh my God, I'm going to lose all my abilities that I've built up over years. The reality is you don't. It comes back really, really quickly. But I kind of looked at it and thought, right, this is a massive opportunity. I'm going to engage with this game. I'm going to engage on my terms. And I was really aware of, or I became really aware of why I enjoyed playing these games. And it goes, we talked about it on the last show, our engagement with Football Manager. I'm the same as you. I've been playing that from about from when it first came out, about the age of 13, I think, and I've played every one since. But what I've learned is what I like through that is I do like the feeling of winning. But with FC24, it's even more specific. It's actually not about winning. It's about that feeling of scoring goals. And I became really connected with how I felt over different parts of the game. And I realized, if I don't pack a great player, not the end of the world. And if I pack a great player, oddly, I wasn't like getting this massive high that some people do. It was that feeling of just scoring goals in games. That's what I kind of really enjoyed. So I thought, okay, I can control that. I can enjoy that. That means I'm not bothered about results, not bothered about the opponents, how they're playing. I'm just, as long as I'm scoring, I'm enjoying it. So that meant that actually I didn't invest hugely in tactics, meta setups, none of that type of stuff. And I think it just allowed me to kind of approach the game knowing what I enjoyed about it. And I guess my question to you and to others would be, what do you enjoy the most about the game? But the holy grail that we're aiming for here is, with that dopamine management I talked about before, it's that anticipation of a reward, is to associate the winning and getting that reward with the effort of the process rather than getting it itself. So I'm interested to see how you're approaching it, like Dan, in terms of what would you say is, why do you engage with the game? What is it, if you were to strip it all back, what is it that you really love about it?
I just love building teams. I love again, I talked about it in part one, and same with other games I've played, whether it's FM or Command and Conquer or Civilization. I love taking something small and building and building and building and making it bigger. And I love the idea of just building that monster team. And how I get there, gameplay is almost kind of the last route I like to get there. It's a means to an end, the gameplay. It is satisfying winning games, but I'm often sitting there internally a nervous wreck playing games because I've got I'm like, these people are better than me. I'm not going to do it, but I feel safe within the menus because I'm like, I know this. I can't lose here. Okay, I could lose some coins on a trade, but I know what I'm doing, and I build up to it that way. And ultimately, the reward I'm chasing is to be able to turn spending a few hours opening bronze packs into player of the month, Kylian Mbappe, to then go and play some weekend league with it. So I've kind of been trying to spread out the rewards that I'm chasing, rather than just being all about, I'm chasing 14 wins and basing my entire enjoyment of this game or what division I'm in Rivals.
Yeah, that's really key, because I can relate to that as well in my journey, is actually finding what it is about the game I enjoy and focusing on that actually means that a lot of the other stuff that I judge myself on as where is your kind of like your how good a player you are, actually it bothers me less. I don't care what division I'm in. I'd like to, as long as I can hit, say, 7 wins over the course of a week on Rivals, yeah, great. I actually prefer doing objectives at the moment because, you know, it's I feel like it's more fun because I'm not worried about, oh my God, I lost and I was the better player, or they're playing a certain tactic, or they're running down the wing and like it getting me riled up. I'm just sat there kind of thinking, oh, well, it's there. Yeah. You can do it. I can do it. As long as I'm scoring goals, and if I score more than you and I win, great. But that's kind of allowed me to find this kind of balance with the game. But it's hard when there is, you know, you put that pressure on yourself. And I've been there the past few years. You know, if I'm coaching other people, I've got to be an elite level player. Yeah. And I've also got to be engaging with the game constantly to be able to find ways to help other people. And I think that did add an extra layer on top of me. That was self-pressure, basically. And I felt embarrassed if I wasn't hitting a high level of wins consistently or playing in a good way. So, yeah, I'm just here for the positive vibes now. And so far, it's kind of working. And I think there's a few other things I've done which have helped, right? So one is I don't have the mobile app either. I'm making it harder for me to engage with the game. And that's really helped. And I'll come on to talk about the others actually as we move through the rest of the segments, because I think it might kind of help more around actually that overconsumption that I talked about before. But yeah, having only 1 or 2 ways to engage there, something that makes it harder, means that actually it's not easily accessible, and I'm constantly connected with it, and that's hugely helped as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we talk about burnout, and it's something that I went through at the end of FIFA 23. I had started streaming. I've obviously been very highly involved in Foot in Review. There were times when John was away and I was hosting 2 shows a week. Before we went to video, I was editing a lot of them as well. Of course, heavily engaged within the community. As mentioned, I was streaming, and I had 2 accounts as well. I'd started a second account. And I got to the point where at first it was all thrilling and it was great and I loved it. And it was, new account, building this. Plus I got my main account. I've got more stuff to stream. And then it was, well, I'm playing 2 weekend leagues over a weekend. And I'm still trading and building teams. And it just got to a point where I just sat there and just thought, what? I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. I'm no longer getting the pleasure out of this. And I stepped away, and that was how I dealt with it. I took that, not a full detox because I was still in the Discord, I still did the odd podcast and things like that, but for a good sort of 2 or 3 months I just stepped away, and that helps me reassess my relationship with the game. Now that's probably at the extreme, one of the more extreme ways to kind of modify that behavior through the lessons you've sort of learned and your own experiences and speaking to others. I mean, let's start somebody on that journey. If they are maybe thinking that I've got a little bit of an unhealthy relationship or even a very unhealthy relationship with the game, kind of take them through maybe some practical steps of kind of how to identify that, and then maybe some steps they can take to address it.
Yeah, you touched on the detox. Oddly, we both did the same thing. And when I researched this more, when they talk about recovery, a 30-day detox is recommended clinically. And I thought, you know what? I've done that, and I could relate to it because I now know what happened in my brain. Because what happened was, when we talk about dopamine, I was in such a deficit because I was constantly, like you were, over engaged. So you're not getting the highs, you're just constantly running low. You've got all these gremlins that are sitting on that pain side in your brain. You're getting no pleasure, just constant pain. And I mean, it's subconscious pain, you're not physical pain, you're not sitting there going, ow, this hurts, but it's a mental sort of pain. And what happens on that detox is your dopamine rebalances and you hit back to a baseline level again that's normal. And they recommend a 30-day detox. And what they say is the first 10 days are horrendous. Now, I was lucky because I went on holiday for about 10 days. So I was so distracted. And even my friend who was on holiday with, we were both playing FIFA at the time. And he was like, oh, have you logged in and done this SBC? I was like, no, mate, I'm not. I'm here for a holiday. So, and then oddly, he then stopped. And then when I came back, I just didn't pick it back up again. And it was amazing. I would say, I think in some other steps to think about would be, now I learned this on the course that I went on, and I engaged with a company called Neurify. If you're on social media, I'd recommend giving them a follow. They post some really practical tips to help you rebalance dopamine, but also your other happy chemicals. But what they got us to do was review screen time. And wow, that's eye-opening. Like I was like, wow, I felt kind of embarrassed. And within that, it will tell you how often on your phone you're connecting with the web app. And that can, just looking at that number can tell you quite a lot. I would also look at the number of games you played as well. I didn't look last year, but it would have been thousands of games. I think that's an interesting measure to go and have a look as well. I would seek feedback from somebody who knows you really well and say, what do you think my habits are? Like, and just ask them and just have a conversation. And it might be that they think actually you can game really healthy. It's fine. That's cool. Right. But, I think it's good to ask. Think about how you feel, right? It might sound a bit deep, but actually when you're playing, you feel tense, feel agitated, aggro, stressed, angry, or you sat there and you're feeling quite mellow, you're enjoying bits, you may be smiling at bits, like where would you kind of see yourself? And I was horrendous. If I conceded a bad goal, I'd slam my fist on the desk. I must have gone through about 5 controllers last year. I felt embarrassed, actually. That's bad. That is bad. I'd kind of grip them and twist them and I was so angry, and I thought, this is not what this is about. And just think about the language that you use when you're talking to other people. Is it more negative than positive? I think when I reflect now, my language was negative, my behavior was negative, I was disengaged, and my engagement volume, hours, was ridiculous. So I know that now.
I think the tricky thing, and it's something that I've always, since I came into this kind of sphere back in FIFA 20 during lockdown, I've struggled, and I'm hoping maybe you know the answer, I've struggled to figure out what makes FIFA and EA give you such unbelievable highs and such unbelievable lows, because no other game that I've ever played, but I don't think there is. I don't think any other game has affected me kind of emotionally as much as this game. Like you say, the highs are great and you are buzzed. I've had like weekend leagues where I've hit certain wins or something. Even today, I played today. I got 9-1 in playoffs, and I've been buzzing for the rest of the day because I've done really well. It's had a really positive effect on the rest of my day because I'm a bit more carefree. I'm a bit like, I've had a good day today. And then there are other times, like you said, I've yet to break a controller, but I've kicked the air in disgust many a time, and uttered names and insults that I think would melt Alexa. But what is there a specific thing about this game that you think heightens those highs and lowers those lows?
There's not enough studies done specifically on the game. There are studies that are done in gaming specifically, but not probably enough that I've seen that really kind of explain, I guess, the emotional roller coaster that we go on. I think my observation would be is that playing the game itself, like playing matches, so you talk about like your qualifiers, it's a winner loser. There's no middle ground. If I play Fortnite, I can finish 85th or 7th. The only frustration is how long I got to be in the game for. but I can load in back into a game just as quickly. And I think there are other elements such as your team, how you're playing, what your opponent is doing. And I think we know that the meta side of the game just causes frustration. So I think you go on a lot of an emotional roller coaster. You're so invested, you're trying very hard. The opponent is doing things you don't potentially like. I think it's just a real emotional roller coaster. But ultimately, did you win or lose the game? And then when you win, you feel great. And when you lose, you don't. I do think the one part of FC24, what EA do, skill-based matchmaking, makes it a really tough experience, and why some parts of the game are more enjoyable than others, such as qualifiers for Weekend League, oddly, and some parts of Weekend League is way better. I think when you're constantly playing somebody who is just as good as you, that's really tough. And if you look at athletes, okay, so arguably in football, they are competing against, athletes of the same caliber, but like boxers aren't constantly fighting other boxers all at the same level all the time. There's a gap in between. We're kind of throwing ourselves into games every 12 minutes where we're literally going toe to toe with somebody else.
Yeah.
So we're investing a lot emotionally and mentally. It's hard. Hence why we need to take breaks.
Yeah, and it is that whole kind of winner-loser thing. And I mentioned this show's going to be released weeks after, but on the last Foot in Review show when we recorded this, I talked about one of the best objectives I think that EA put into the game recently was the fact you got bonus packs just for playing a rivals game and scoring a goal, because it gave you a reason to stay in that game and also not to be too down high. So I've lost the game, but you know what? I scored a goal. I've got a bit closer to that objective. And also with the Evo objectives as well of having, I'm using this. I've lost, but I've got the appearance I needed for my Gareth McCleary evolution. And it so took away the pressure and the aggression from that game. Yeah, it was disappointing to lose, but I was like, I've still got something out of it. And I think you're onto something there with the whole kind of Fortnite example. And I used to be the same with Halo. I wouldn't win lots of games on Halo necessarily, but my KD wasn't necessarily great, but I was part of a team. And it was fun along the way. And I also think that as well, I think that the solo nature of this game doesn't help people. I think the fact that EA have not gone down the co-op route, yes, you've got pro clubs, but it's been so de-emphasized in their kind of priority because ultimately their business priority is Ultimate Team. But I think that being able to share your experiences and your angers and the highs and lows with somebody else, I always think has sort of lessened that roller coaster. Although I say that, but I find the highs when you do something great in a co-op game are so much better, and the lows seem less. Maybe it's just because you're just sharing it with someone.
Yeah, I do think there's something in that. And again, I'm not qualified enough or trained enough to know like what's happening, when we do share the experiences with somebody else. But I do think you do lighten the load, the mental load a little bit. I've still been frustrated when I've played co-op, but at the same time, I have actually laugh a little bit more, or you're kind of on message or you're on chat and you're just like, God, this is like ridiculous. And it just feels a bit easier. I think some other things to kind of bear in mind for, I guess, those who are potentially over-consuming. I would rather use that word potentially than addiction. I don't want to diagnose any addiction it's not my position to do that. There are health professionals who can do that. But what I would say is if you're over-consuming, I would encourage people as a first step, and actually this will probably give you a bit of an insight into if you are over-consuming, is to do a one-day detox. And that is every week to one day not connect with anything related to the game. No web app, no console, nothing. Just one day. And sometimes it will naturally happen. And I would be confident to say where it naturally happens, where we've got plans, weekends away, this, that, and the other, you probably come back and you do feel a little bit energized. You probably feel a bit refreshed and think, oh yeah, actually. And I wonder also when that happens, if you play better as well. When you're overconsumed, when your dopamine levels have hit rock bottom and you're so demotivated and you're not concentrating properly and you start to feel agitated, you just don't play your best. And what I would, as part of that, what I would encourage is, back to what I said in the first show, dopamine is designed as a reward release for effort. And if you're taking a 1-day detox, I'd think about doing something that requires actual effort, physical effort. So some level of exercise, walking, I do that frequently. They talk about, research shows, tidying your house, tidying your room, doing something practical can actually have a real positive effect. And the other one, and this isn't for everyone, I know that, but cold water has the biggest impact on increasing your dopamine levels compared to anything else that exists. So this is where people talk about cold water therapy, cold water shock, whether you have a cold bath, whether you have a cold shower. And if you recognize maybe you are not feeling great, that cold water shock can have quite a positive impact. I can't get more than 30 seconds in a cold shower. I do struggle with it, but I try and build in more physical kind of pain, essentially, that I put my, positive pain is what I refer to it as, like going to the gym, walking, tidying, doing something, and I do feel sort of refreshed. So there is something in that as well, I would say.
Yeah, and it's, again, the more opportunities you get to take a step back, whether that's a 1-day detox or even in the middle of a gaming session. John has talked about it on Foot in Review many a time. And, through your own experiences with foot coaching, the positive impact of literally just getting up out of your seat and going for a walk, going to make a cup of tea, going to get yourself a cold drink. If you've been on that losing run, can just give you that mental reset. And it's the same with a 1-day detox. If you're getting to overconsumption, just take that step away and just ask yourself the very basic question, well, why am I doing this? Just have that space to think and to put things into a greater perspective. And then you can come back, like you said, often very refreshed, and go on from there.
And when we're playing, right, I'm talking about playing games more than maybe opening packs here, but when you're playing, when you the pleasure pain balance that goes off in your head, right? This is the chemical balancing. So when you feel pleasure, automatically and subconsciously, your brain will want to kind of impose some sort of pain to bring equilibrium into your brain, because you can't be in constant pleasure all the time. So it just naturally happens. But when it comes to gaming, what happens is when you win a game, and we talked about this, is that it's like, if we win, play one more. That subconscious feeling of saying play one more is the pain being triggered in your brain, telling you just play one more. Now, oddly, the same thing happens when you lose. So when you lose, you're like, can't end on a loss. So you're going to play. So that it's constantly rebalancing. So when you lose, you feel pain. So to get pleasure, it's saying play one more, and it's the complete flip around. So you do need some sort of like physical intervention at that point. If you lose on a losing streak, that's when you can start to really kind of nosedive in that moment. So stopping and doing something. What I've done, I've put a limit on my console, so I get a reminder when I've done 2 hours. And that has oddly really started to help. It's a positive. I'm not saying necessarily stop straight away, but what I start to plan is my exit and think, yeah, okay, I'm out. I've done my 2 hours. That's a long stint. I need to just now go and do something else. And I have found that quite a positive step as well. A few other things I've done just for the purposes of sharing, if this is helping or if this could help. Like I said, I only to have access. I limited access to the game. I limit, or I've reduced heavily my social media followings. So I'm trying to reduce myself to follow only positive people and try and get down to a really low number of people. What I realized, so for example, on YouTube, I was subscribed to over 50 FIFA content creators.
Wow.
For various, right? Notifications on, bang, 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 notifications all day going off. So I looked at that and thought, that's not healthy, because that's not helping. It's just more overconsumption. I'm getting someone else tell me, oh, do these tricks, I've opened these packs, da, 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 da. So now I've got that down to 5. and they're positive people that I connect with. I've done the same on social media. I have stopped following those who weren't positive, or actually they were just basically, if I followed, say, 10 trading accounts, I just follow one now because it's all the same stuff. Now, again, I would, from an overconsumption perspective, I would just go have a look and think, right, how many people am I connected with? That's kind of adding to this. And I found that a kind of positive step, but it's step by step. I didn't do it all at once. I just started to reduce it week on week and just take, right, that one, nope, that one, nope, that one. And I now have a limited number of, accounts, content creators, whoever, from people who play the game that I follow, but they're people who can generally pretty positive. And that has a positive impact on me as well.
Absolutely. And I think all of those are really good kind of practical tips to avoid, like you say, that overconsumption, and to get yourself back into a balance, or even not get yourself into a balance. Again, we're very keen to stress here that we're, for the 99.9% of people that play this game, you'll be within most people's definition of reasonable. Some people just enjoy it more than others. Some people just have more time to play it than others, and things like that. So again, we are not medical experts. We're not trained psychologists. So we are not here diagnosing and saying, you've got a problem because you're doing X or Y that we've talked about. Again, it's all about just asking yourself questions, being aware of kind of the issues, and being aware of kind of the traps that people can fall into that can lead to sort of negative impacts from playing this game. But sort of going forward, any kind of, as we draw this sort of second part to a close, anything else to add?
When it comes to pack opening, I read about this one technique, and this is from Dr. Andrew Huberman. He hosts I would say, pretty much what feels like a world famous podcast, Huberman Lab. He's an expert in like neuroscience, and he has lots of specialists on a range of subjects. But in his newsletter, oddly, he talked about a way of getting balance over dopamine, and he talks about this coin flip technique. And I kind of looked at that, and I thought, you could apply this to pack opening. And the coin flip was, so from a pack opening perspective, you flip a coin, heads or tails. If it lands on heads, you're going to open your packs. If you land on tails, you don't. And you do that every day. And what that starts to do is actually bring some level of enjoyment back into pack opening, because sometimes pack opening can not feel great. You're waiting for that one special card, it doesn't come. But actually, where you lose a bit of that just routine of doing the same thing, that's just not giving you any high anymore. So actually, you're kind of leaving it up to luck to say, am I going to open my packs today? And if you do, great, you open all your packs. And if you don't, you just leave it for the next day. And you might have 3 packs, but it will mean you do the same thing. And you think, oh, I've got 3 packs to open today. And you might just then rediscover a little bit of a high for something that, as I talked about before, that is kind of your neural highway for getting a high. So I thought that was quite interesting. And I think, longer term, really, I'll share my journey. I'm going on a journey with FC24. Right now, I'm still using the same controller I started with, so that feels better. I'm not engaging with the game every day. I am taking breaks. I've applied limits. I've looked at my overconsumption. And I know how I'm enjoying the game, but I'm not an expert, and I've still got a journey to go on. And I would like, through our community, Foot in Review, I'll be creating a channel. I'll be sharing more on this topic, and really have an open door for people to come and talk to me about, and work through some ways of potentially looking at what your habits are like, how you're feeling about the game, and ultimately how to enjoy it. Because I love scoring goals. As long as if I score more than the opponent, great. If they score more than me, I'm not fussed about the result. And I think for me, I feel really happy with my engagement with the game at this stage. So yeah, it's heading in the right direction.
And look, hats off to you for being so open to share your kind of experiences, both positive and negative, with the game. And again, the message is that everybody is a work in progress, and everybody is human. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have our highs and our lows. And it's just about, again, the thing we pride ourselves so much in Foot in Review is, as Aaron said, we are a community. We are there. There is no judgment. It's like, you know, it's not like, oh, yeah, look at you can't get yourself off the game. You know, what a sad act. Or like, likewise, it's not a hero worship. Oh my God, this guy's the best person in humanity because he's got 20-0. It's all just, we're just a bunch of people playing a video game, and we share this mutual interest, and we're there to put arms around shoulders when things aren't going well and celebrate, you know, when things are going well. And look, attached to both parts of this show, if you go and look, however you consume this podcast or the video version, we will attach notes in terms of some resources, and Aaron's going to provide some links to further reading, ways to contact him. And the other thing to say as well is, look, get in touch. We're going to provide an email inbox, and again, all those different ways to contact Aaron. If you have lots of questions and you'd like a follow-up on the themes that we've discussed in the 2 parts here, we're going to be happy to check. We're definitely going to do a check-in regardless of what happens sort of in a few months' time. But look, we're happy to come back and do a kind of a Q&A. You know, again, feel free to send feedback anonymously. Again, we'll provide all the different ways to do so. But I mean, Aaron, it's been a genuinely fascinating conversation. I mean, we've talked for over an hour in the 2 parts, and I feel that we could easily sit here for 6.
Yeah, definitely. No, there's more. So there's definitely more to say. And yeah, the links I'll post, I'll also reference the specialists and trained clinicians in this who kind of, I've really absorbed their work. And that's what kind of helped me understand it and feel like I can kind of hopefully talk about it in a way that makes sense to the people. But there are some great resources that they all have, and I would definitely recommend to connect with them in some way to understand a bit more. But I'll kind of share my summaries with the group as well. So yeah, thanks, Dan. Been great talking about it.
No, absolutely great to have you on. And once again, just that final message, we've said it 2 or 3 times again, please don't feel scared or alarmed or worried about any of the kind of themes that we've talked about. If, you know, we've all been there where someone said something. For me, it's whenever I read something about health in a newspaper, it'll be like, if you eat too much bacon, you're going to get X, Y, or Z. And, you know, you get that chill goes through you as you think, oh God, I've done that. Or if it's actually, do you know, the worst thing is when you're Googling a symptom you've had.
Yeah, hey, God,
and it's like, I've got a tingle in my fingers. So, and then I've convinced myself that I should probably be going straight to A&E. But it's just, I've just been sat in a funny position for too long. But it you know, I joke, but in all seriousness, again, all the themes and things that we've talked about here, we're not trained psychologists. Aaron's done some fantastic research and is clued up on the issues, but we don't want to scare anybody. We don't want to put panic in anybody. We're just opening up this conversation because this is a conversation, and it's an ever-growing, it's a learning experience more than anything else. So hopefully we've, you know, helped some people, or not just kind of, again, given people, you know, an hour's worth of listening. However you've consumed this show, we very much appreciate your company. Again, we'll be back to check in with Aaron, and hopefully going to pop back on Foot in Review as well over the next few months as well.
Absolutely. Yep, I will be back.
Indeed. But all of the resources, all of the links will be in the show notes. But thank you very much for your time. We'll end the show as we have to end any Foot in Review. It's a special show, but there's only one thing we can do to end it, Aaron.
Drop it.
We're going to drop it.